I was extremely drained. This was late that night. I don't know, it may have been midnight or something like that. We had, of course, been up for days. And when I went to bed, Sergeant Maxey was still right on that bridge where I had seen him when the bridge was, first completed, just crossing tanks, crossing anything that came down there. He was still up, just getting it, and no problems, nothing wrong with him. And then the next morning when we woke up, probably about 24 hours later, after the artillery round had impacted and knocked Sergeant Maxey out, is when I think he started to feel the effects. He probably felt that all along, but being caught up in the moment and with adrenaline, just kept driving on, and probably maybe trying to be hard as well and just keep going. But then I remember something's wrong with Sergeant Maxey, and they had to medevac him out.
The following day, we had to maintain our security positions. This is when we had people set up on either side of the pedestrian bridge and the vehicle bridge. And then we began doing our searches of everyone that came across the bridge.
I always, myself, went out of my way to be as nice as I could to the Iraqis because, they always talk about hearts and minds. So if you're mean to the people and mistreat them for no reason, you're never going to win their hearts and minds like that. But there's really no nice way to take somebody that you don't know and go through all their personal belongings.
I remember this one time this guy started, yelling at me. Or not yelling, but, saying stuff because I'm looking. And I'm not really paying attention to what I'm looking for. I'm not looking at that, what's in the bag, but I'm looking for stuff underneath of it. And here it's, his wife's undergarments. And I'm like, oh, I felt really terrible. And he could tell that I felt bad, but they've been picking up weapons off these people left and right.
We did the bridge security for, I want to say, approximately 2 months. During that 2-month time period, we did hear of suicide car bombers going to various checkpoints, blowing themselves up. In fact, there were a couple of Marines who were killed right down the street from us, who were amongst the large crowds of people trying to maintain order. What happened after the 2 months, we pulled both of our bridges out of the water. One of the bridges was replaced with an Iraqi bridge. We found the pieces to an Iraqi bridge and put it together and left it permanently. And then we left the temporary span at that bridge site and we moved. We moved away from there. We went about 30 to 40 miles southwest of Baghdad and set up shop there.
By the time we moved from the river to Camp Dogwood, we'd been outdoors for like 50 days. I hadn't had a shower in 55 days either. So when we got to Camp Dogwood, our maintenance people took some old 55-gallon drums, and they found a brass faucet from somewhere, tied a string to it, and put a coffee can under it with holes poked in the bottom, and that was our shower finally.
I guess if you would look at Baghdad from an aerial photo, you would see it would probably look similar to a spider web as far as the canals are concerned. It seemed every farmer had some little offshoot of a river or stream where they would put up, so they could irrigate their farms. If you're inside of this canal zone, everything's nice and green. You step outside of the canal zone, it's a barren wasteland. Dogwood was outside of the canal zone.
While we were at Camp Dogwood, things were a little lax for a while, all things considered. We did pull security. We went in shifts. At this time, we did a lot of maintenance type work on the vehicles, on the equipment, on the weapons, on ourselves. We were fortunate to have a few buildings that we took over. At the time, the buildings were completely stripped down to the wiring. But because of us being, not only us being engineers, but the fact that we had a lot of civilian electricians, plumbers, these types of people, we were able to kind of set up our own little temporary shop there.
Hi, hon. I'm so sorry we missed your call. Believe it or not, We were here sitting in the living room and honestly didn't hear the phone ring. I heard your voice on the answering machine and took off running in search of the phone. By the time I found it, you had already hung up. We'll be here all day tomorrow, so if you have a chance, please call. I felt so bad about missing your call. I hope you didn't wait in line for hours to call me. I'm so depressed now. I miss you like crazy and love you even more. Cuddles. We didn't have cell phones, and people that did have cell phones were having trouble because not always the reception would always pick up. It would drop calls. And last thing you wanted was a drop call. So we all just, the other wives and I and the families just sat around the house waiting for that phone to ring. So it was about 2 weeks later he called and he said, I called your mom. I knew it was going to upset you that you missed it, but I want to tell you that I'm here. It's hot. It's hot. I've never seen someone say it in my life. And I miss you and I love you, and I hope the kids are okay. It was a very brief 10-minute conversation.
It was torture. It was the worst feeling in the world. I can't describe any worse feeling that I've ever had in my whole life than missing his phone call. I've never experienced anything like it. I felt like, well, I should just lay around in the house. I should just wait for his phone call, because every time I try to do something else, I miss it. His mom and I talked on the phone every single night, because if he called me, of course I wanted to let her know, and vice versa. And I even called her. If he called me in the middle of the night, I called her in the middle of the night. I didn't make her wait until the morning to know that he was okay.
You find yourself always attached to the telephone. If you're out in the yard, the phone's got to go with you. If you're in the garage, the phone's got to go with you. You go to the bathroom, the phone goes with you. Because she doesn't know. I mean, she never knows when they're going to get a chance to make a call or do anything. Their time difference was, 8 hours?
Yeah.
So things were, of course, my boss at work had told me that, it don't matter what time of day it is. If she calls, you take the phone call. That's just the way that goes. So that was nice when she got the call, but that didn't happen a whole lot. You didn't want to leave the discussion open for, okay, now what? And maybe not get the call again for another couple of weeks. So.
Did you miss any calls?
Oh, yeah.
What did that feel like?
That was terrible. Nothing worse than coming back and finding her voice on the answering machine. But they're still on my answering machine over there. I'll keep them.
Sunday, 2:06 a.m. Message 3. Hi, sweetheart. Just wanted to call and tell you, say hi, and I love you. We still don't know when we're coming home. I'm not sure when I'll get to call you again. I love you. Dakota, I love you. I miss y'all. Bye.
They just kept moving. They kept going and going and going until they got to Baghdad. And finally, I guess they got a hold of a phone. I don't know what kind of phone it was or whatever. And he just called long enough to say, hi, I'm okay, everything like that. And I could tell by his voice, and then I was okay for a while, just to hear the sound. It didn't have to be more than a few seconds. That's all I needed. You get your 5 minutes wherever you can.
The main thing we were doing was called Task Force Bullet.
We would wake up in the morning, leave the perimeter, go to an ammo bunker, go into the ammo bunker, haul out these big crates of artillery shells, mortar shells, whatever was in there, stack them on the back of our truck, and take them back to Camp Dogwood, take them out of this perfectly good, cool area into the hot sun and leave them there.
Very first one we went on, I got into an argument with our platoon sergeant, Sergeant Kitty, because there were some tank rounds laying there on the ground, and they still had the fuse in them. And I was starting to unscrew the fuses out of them. I didn't want to haul them on the road with the fuse still in them. And me and him kind of argued about that. He just said, leave it alone, don't be unscrewing that because you don't know about them. And he was right. I just got lucky. I unscrewed the fuse out of it and nothing happened, but I didn't know that.